Ladies and gentlemen, ears of corn all over the internet and indeed the world, welcome to the Corn Chronicles. The search continues. Tonight's guest is none other than the one and only Moose, Jamin Verano, joining me here. Jamin, how's it going, my friend?
Going well. Going well. Thanks for having me.
Man,
So
it would not
I
be
threw,
the
all
Corn
my, I
Chronicles.
threw out all my material when I thought you were recording to start with. I thought the show started right at the beginning. So I
Oh,
threw out
no, man.
jokes before.
I'm sorry. I like to give a little prep, let everybody know what to expect. I'm sorry, my brother.
All right.
You wanna hit me with the coffee line again?
That's all right. It's all right.
Oh man, right on. Man, Jamin, thank you so much for joining me. Jamin and I go way back to our freshman year of college. I certainly met him right in Laurel Hall, our freshman dorm, where we kind of came up together with the rest of the B9ers there. A few of which have already been on the program. We have some stories to reprise that you're very much the center of that I would love your perspective on. But yeah, exactly. That face was appropriate. But first and
Yeah.
foremost,
Can't wait.
I want to talk about our first impressions of each other because I feel like for you and I, it's pretty apropos to share. And I'll certainly start. Obviously, I first met Jamin our first day at York College. He lived right across the hall from me, and gentleman is, makes his way in. He's kind of a big, imposing dude. He's got this big old beard, very similar to what you're looking at now. He's wearing like all black and jeans. And
It's slimming.
what's that?
Black was slimming, but yeah. Go ahead.
So he's kind of an intimidating looking dude. You know what I'm saying? He really is. And he comes up to me that evening, and the first words he says to me is, do you want to come suffer with me? Now, I heard suffer with two F's, and I immediately thought to myself, like, oh, Lord. Like, so this is how it's going to be, I guess. But what he actually said was, would you like to come to supper with me with two P's? And I am not very well versed in some of the popular colloquialisms of Pennsylvania at the time. And certainly here in Long Island, New York, as much as I like to think I don't have the accent, we don't really say supper, we say dinner, usually, most people I know. And so I pretty much, like, as smoothly as I could, was just like, oh, no thanks, man, I appreciate it, And then lo and behold, a couple minutes later, the door.
Yes.
What's that?
No, I forgot you said no.
Yeah, exactly.
And then, I'll let you go ahead and finish, and I'll give you my side of the story here.
I would love it. So, well, I say no, no, thank you. And then suddenly, like, the door comes to this consensus of just like we should all go to dinner, DINNER. And I, of course, say, like, yeah, of course, I would love to do that, like I could eat, and slight stature aside, I could always eat, that's for sure, especially back then. And lo and behold, David and I wound up walking together to the dining hall with the rest of our dorm, and I can only imagine what he thought of me when I turned him down to go eat. And then as soon as somebody else asked, I was just like, of course, I would love to do that. David,
Yeah.
please take it from there, man.
No, that was, yeah, I remember a little differently. I don't think we walked together. I think I came in to the dining hall and like the whole dorm room was eating at the table and I was on my own.
Oh,
so
God.
I'm like, but to be fair, I remember like we talked about it later. And you're like, well, you had Bible verses up on your wall. Like we had those whiteboards on our door.
Yes.
And I was trying to like set a good example of who I wanted to be going into college. So I like started off with like some pretty heavy Bible verses. And yeah, I was wearing all black because, you know, I wanted to, it was slimming, like I said. So it's just funny, all the things I was doing in the classic Jamin way of, this makes perfect sense. Head of why I'm doing this. It was just like sending the complete opposite message. And then, yeah, so I asked you to go to supper, and then no one, I think maybe me and Scott went, but like everyone else like kind of left the dorm. And I'm like, where'd everyone go? And they're like, I think they went to dinner. I'm like, all right, that's how this is gonna be. It's like day 2 or day 3 of orientation. I don't even know if classes started.
Yeah. Oh no, it was early. Because by the time classes started, you got your first impression of me that I'm not very proud of. David and I, after burying the hatchet, as it related to the dinner situation, found out that we had a similar not similar, the same history course. And so we would go Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and I believe like 12 noon, right around lunchtime. And we would go to an American history course taught by Professor Von Tassel.
That's right.
Yeah, I already took the lead on my first impression of you, as out of line as I was, or mistaken as I was. Why don't you go ahead and tell me a little bit about my first impression to you when we shared that course together?
I think you need to set the scene a bit with who that guy is, though. Von Tassel, like, I've never heard anybody describe better than when you described him. It was like you said he was carved from a piece of the Grand Canyon. I'm like, that is him. Yeah. And like, by all means, he should be like this really boring guy, but for some reason, he had these one-liners that just got us every time.
You bet.
The drawer. And so, yeah, so we're just sitting there, and either most of the time you're nodding off. I don't know if it was an early class or not. That was kind of the first impression.
That's what
Just because you were sitting there. And like the one time you like bumped into me, like, and I'm like, what is he bumping into me? And here you are just like falling asleep. So, and I'm like, hey, I got to keep this guy up. I have enough trouble staying awake. And I don't know if it's because we were so exhausted coming into this class, but everything he said eventually got us.
I have no clue, man. I spent that course, the entirety of that course, and I got an A in that course. I took my academics very seriously, but I spent the entirety of that course, I swear to God, either falling asleep, which I never did in high school, which I never did in college afterwards. Something about that course or that room or that temperature. Literally, I spent the whole course falling asleep and staying upright, mind you. Like it was kind of a perspective.
As far as you can remember, you were upright, yeah, for the.
And it was either that or like stifling the ripest laughter in the world and just like trying desperately to keep a straight face. There was no middle ground of learning. I would just like take what he said, read the textbook, pass the test. There was no middle ground. It was either suppressed laughter to the nth degree or literally.
I've never before had to hold in laughter for 30 minutes at something that was not funny at all.
It's
like,
not. It was such banal stuff. It was check out what's in my magic drawer, but he wasn't. Oh Lord.
He talked about Texas every once in a while.
Exactly. It used to drive him nuts that people would say Texas is out west, and he'd be like,
South.
It's in the South. That's just the way he said it. Oh, yeah. And of course the classic. If I bring the basketball to the gym, and I love that he was using basketball. He's like, oh, you have to let me shoot since it's my basketball.
Yeah.
He's this old man made of stone. I swear to God, he's made of stone, and he's holding this imaginary basketball, and you have Pete there in the front row.
Pete. He wasn't trying to stay awake through the thing. His head was down, and he was just out.
Exactly. man. Just take
Either
it.
that or he'd look back at us and like roll his eyes and then just, yeah.
And we sat next to the couple, Chris and I think it was Chris and Kristen, as weird as that kind of sounds, but there was that couple. Uh, I remember
Yeah,
last.
shame on me. I had a couple more classes with them too, and I can't remember their names. And actually, I did a project with her. I have a binder with some of her work in it still
Oh,
from
yeah.
college, but I'm not going to go rummage through that.
Right? No, please don't. Um, but there was this couple that wound up getting married, and I don't think they were dating like when we like hand to God. I'm sure that they met in that class, and just happened to be sitting next to each other. And
A lot of lifelong bonds formed through Von Tassel.
dude, it's amazing. I have professors that I hold dear, certainly, and I have writing majors that certainly I love and respect, but like I don't know if there has been any one standalone class that has just forged such an impact on me. And in many ways, it was just such a drastic misrepresentation of like who I was as a college student. Not that I didn't have my moments. I definitely had, in certain ways, your traditional college experience, but I was also studying my rear end off. And of course, my first impression here with my dorm mate Jamin is just like, stumbling and falling asleep when he's doing his best to keep me literally.
And every time on the walk home, you'd be like, this isn't who I am. Like, you were very adamant about every single time for a whole semester. Like, that's not me. I study, I work hard. I'm like, no, I don't care. But you were very, very adamant about that not being a good representation of who you are. But everyone, to your point, like we were talking maybe a year later about Von Tassel, and like everyone's like, oh yeah, I know exactly who that person is. Like we were a small campus, but I didn't know every professor there by any means. But I guess everyone knew Von Tassel somehow. So
I guess I'd like to imagine that they were stifling in laughter too. Like maybe we weren't as alone as we thought.
Yeah, and that actually the girl I was talking about that I had the class with we talked about it, and she's like, I have no idea how you guys passed that class, and I don't know what you guys were laughing at, but it's distracting as hell. And I'm like, I don't know either. I don't know.
Oh,
I'm sorry.
It was so bad, so bad. Everyone in that class had apology because I doubt it was half as subtle as.
And to this point, I can't even remember a single subject that he taught in that class, like a single topic.
No doubt. I remember I learned all the amendments to the Constitution.
Oh, what's that class? All right.
Yeah. Which I think I still know quite a few. I'm not saying I lost it all, but I remember because of that class, there was a time in my life where I was like, oh, the 19th is women's suffrage, and it's just things like that.
Yeah, I do remember going through all that now that you mentioned that.
Yeah. But I think that's the only thing. And he also shared. This is not a very interesting story, but he shared this cool little write-up, like before, like sharing stuff on Facebook was a thing. He shared like this cool little write-up of like what each paper meant. Like if you read the Washington Post is read by people who think. I thought that was really cool, actually.
That was good, yeah. I think, very important for a college student where, understanding Fox News, Washington Post, NPR, where like the biases are and where the center line is. That was an important life lesson from.
I took a lot from that. Yeah, it was a cool perspective.
That's true. So I guess it stuck with me subtly in the back of my brain there through the napping.
Depending on the day, it wasn't that subtle, man. I have a lot of them. We can still do this, man.
That's right. I flashed it a few times. I don't know if you got it through the video or not, but.
Oh no, I haven't seen. I didn't see it. Right on, man. I just saw it there. That's on ET. If anyone wants to take a look, Von Tassel, yeah.
Yeah, I got it. We're there.
Jamin, I want to. I've said before that kind of the people that wound up coming together in Laurel Hall by complete chance it's amazing how those unique personalities kind of blended to make what was very much a family. And I think being in a mini dorm kind of helped facilitate that because,
Absolutely.
to an extent, all we had was each other for a while. And it was very kind of accepting because there wasn't a whole floor and whole dorm worth of people to like move on to. And believe me, we all branched out socially by all means. But it was always very special to be kind of tethered to all these unique people that I'm not going to look you in the eye and say like we wouldn't be friends otherwise, but it's amazing how quickly those family type bonds forge themselves amongst, kind of that group of people that just happen to be in that dorm. What I say all the time is I think Steve and I are both very much our own people, but I think to this day we were the only roommates that were remotely like kind of similar to each other walking in that door. I think what I'd love to hear about maybe your impressions of kind of the deeds of Laurel Hall, and kind of the bonds that we forged. And also, I have to say that I don't think that there was a more unique roommate dynamic than between you and Scott. The people who can relate to the story you're about to tell, I get that that's a small audience, but it's something that I want to hear about. I would love to hear kind of your thoughts and perspective on coming up in Laurel Hall and also kind of your relationship with Scott for that year.
Yeah, I should preface this with saying, Scott's, when we were on Facebook and everything, like I offered to send him the friend request, and he's like, "No, I don't accept friends, because I see you all the time." And then I said, "Okay," when we don't see each other anymore, and he never accepted my friend request years later. So maybe that bond wasn't, the greatest, but no, we were good. I think we could be good friends if we picked up the phone and called each other at this point. But we lived together 2 years because he got with me in Susquehanna as well. No, it was. He's a character. I don't know how to describe. He came in move-in day, and he was wearing a winter coat and had a backpack on, and like that was everything. Like that he brought in. It was like 85 degrees, 90 degrees on move-in day. I don't know if you remember. I'm sweating like a pig. Carrying in like my huge bass amp and my TV, because TVs at this point were,
big old boxes. Indeed, nothing flat about them.
And like he comes in, he asked me if I have a sheet that he could borrow, because I don't think he even packed that. So I gave him one of my bed sheets from the get-go. And that was it. Like two completely different worlds. I'm bringing in all my DVDs, my TV, my bass amp, my bass. Every human possession that I've ever had, and he came in with a winter coat in the summer, perfectly fine, redhead. We're two opposite people, very slender, healthy, physical person, and I'm 250, 260 at this point. So complete opposites, and I think he kind of pushed on some of that Christianity stuff too. I wanted to kind of show off to him a little bit, so that's where the message came in, because his parents are missionaries and all that. But no, we I don't know, it was a weird relationship through and throughout. I think we genuinely cared about each other for it all. But
absolutely.
And he shocked me in some way. He loved It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia, which is definitely something you wouldn't expect from his upbringing. But he was on the computer. He was getting into all kinds of like old film and all that. He was always with his camera, very studious as well. And I'm kind of there just watching Hulu on my laptop.
Listening
I think a classic summary of our relationship. We were all social gathering in our room for a couple minutes, and I tried to crack a joke, and he just kind of goes, "Jamin, do your work." He just puts his headphones back on and starts going. I'm like, all right. But
man. I'll never forget the David, do your work, man. I feel like that echoed throughout the dorm, even though it had no right to,
Yeah, that's good.
Man, it was certainly a tremendous dynamic, and it was very clear that you all had a lot of love for each other. But Scott was just, a different kind of dude. Spending time in Malaysia, Texas. Parents were missionaries, so Lord knows he was traveling, and he just had a unique um, perspective about what life had to offer, and certainly there was a lot of intelligence and integrity and hard work behind the way he carried himself. So there was a lot to respect, appreciate, admire, so on and so forth. But yeah, it was definitely an interesting dynamic for all of us to live with Scott, but certainly very much for you as his roommate. Uh, One of my favorite Scott stories, and I'll tell it to you because it'll never come up again. If Scott comes on this show, baby boy, like somebody owes me $5, I'll tell you that. But I love, he came home with me for a break one time because he had nowhere else to go. And Steve and I lived in the same hometown, so I don't want to say like I think he stayed with me one night, and he might have stayed with Steve another, just to like switch it up. But I remember we took the train home with him, and he forgot to sign his train ticket. So when the conductor came around, like they couldn't process his ticket right away, and Scott was all just like, "Oh, what do I do? What do you need?" And I remember it was savage, but I loved it because he was savage too. I said, "Oh, my name is Scott. I lived all around the world. I love to travel." And Steve was in stitches, man. And that's all. That's the only validation I needed. It was lovely, man. I'll never forget that memory for as long as I live.
That probably felt great with Scott. Yeah.
It did, man. It was so very rare to catch him not.
That's true. That he's a great guy, but he was right all the time on it. So.
You bet. You bet. Yeah, man. He was always thinking. That's for sure. But it was a great time.
Yeah. You came home with me the one time in April. We went to like Ricketts Glen State Park, and like they closed the trail because of ice, and they said like you need all this ice gear and everything. And like we both kind of just look at the sign and we're like, we'll be fine. It's April. It's pretty hot. Let alone that we go up a mile up in the air into the mountains here.
Yeah.
And it occurred to either one of us that ice doesn't melt in cold weather.
Right.
So we make it like halfway through this closed trail, and like we start going down this hill, and it was a little slippery, and we're like, oh, okay, well, if it gets any worse, we'll turn around and go back. And we kept going. We ended up sliding like pretty much, like I don't want to exaggerate the story, but there's a huge waterfall.
Yeah.
That we were about 50 feet away from a much different story from by the time we stopped our slide and managed to climb back up.
Oh my God. The climb back up was exhausting.
Neither one of us was like, this was a bad idea. We're like, well, we gave it a shot. It's probably time to turn around. So,
it's a good run.
And that was, yeah, it's good. And we had to climb back up. And again, he's thin and healthy, and I'm a 260, 270 pound guy trying to climb up a sheet of ice. So
that must have been awful. I actually vaguely remember that story now that you bring it up. Tremendous.
Yeah.
What a trip.
Yeah, so lesson to people, if it tells you need rock or ice climbing gear, you probably need it to continue on the trail.
Sometimes you got to trust the pros, man.
That would have been awfully embarrassing, though. Could you imagine they're coming to rescue us, and it'll be like, well, we thought we knew better than the sign.
Right.
That would have been like, well, there should have been a better warning.
Oh, no, to be clear, we saw the sign. We just felt we knew better, yeah.
How are we supposed to know?
Jamin, there are two particular stories from freshman year that have come up in previous talks with Denny, Nick, and Jake, our dear friends. And these are stories that bear repeating because they're very much kind of centered around you. And I am so very curious to hear your perspective on a couple of these stories here. First and foremost, what was it like when you were vying for the date night with the Real World's or the Road Rules? I don't know the difference. Paula, can you tell me a little bit about your perspectives from that night?
Yeah, I hated every second of it. That was I was like, why can't I just lose? I made it to like the second to last. I was the second to last person,
You bet. No,
right?
you came in second place, man.
Well, the worst. You know how you have those moments, or maybe it's just me and my anxiety, but like you have those things that keep you up at night about like just like terrible memories that you wish never happened. And then, so that's what that whole rap battle was. Is I'm like, man, there's video of that out there.
Oh
And
yes, rap battle.
I'm rapping. Steve's throwing out words to me on stage. But no, it was. I knew you guys loved me when you took the time to prank me to that point. Um, definitely. I tried taking dive early on, and it wasn't working.
It didn't pan out.
I have no idea how I made it. As far as I did, and luckily, I think she liked mint chocolate, and I knew that she would have liked mint chocolate, so I went like chocolate marshmallow or something. So then the guy took the step forward, and I was out. But no, it was terrifying, and that's all I remember is like I know these people know me, and I'm gonna have to live with this forever. And so yeah.
Man.
And the whole time, you told me, I was so excited. I was, it wasn't so much that I was anxious about that performance. I was more so disappointed that you guys finally invited me to play ping pong with you, and we didn't go play ping pong. Like, that was it. You guys were always gone playing ping pong. I worked a lot at Wise. You guys had ping pong night. I was finally off. And you're like, Jamie, let's go play ping pong. And I was like, yes, I'm in the group. And then I ended up on the real world.
Yeah.
Where almost dating this woman.
Man, yeah, that was a special night. I do regret. We probably should have said something other than you were going to the gym. That was rough. That was a hindsight being 2020, where it's just like maybe that wasn't the best, because it wasn't like nobody was.
I was in gym shorts.
Yeah. Oh no, and it wasn't your fault, but it wasn't like Jamin was not dressed to impress. You know what I'm saying? And that was one thing.
I think it was a blind date thing.
Yeah.
I think Steve said I had a huge penis, which is probably why she got me through a few of the rounds.
Well, there you go. Right on,
yeah, I remember that.
Excellent. Also, I hopped up on stage with you. I want to make sure that you remember that.
Yeah, I do have that picture. And you were jamming out at the dance competition on that. I do have a picture of that. You're like all out wearing the hat I gave you, too.
That's right. Yeah, dude. We were dancing hard. We both did the rap battle.
Yep.
I think I came in like third or fourth, thank God. Yeah.
I don't think I would have made it had you not been on stage. Now that you say that, I do remember that was like the one saving grace of me just not walking off and being like, well, no.
Yep. Yeah, man. I tried to that.
Like just kind of walked in the wrong room. Like, I'm not supposed to be here.
Yeah. Bye, everyone. Give me a bear claw real quick. Oh, man. That was a very special night, man. And you almost got a date you didn't want.
Yeah. I think, how did that end up? There's some rumors going on about that. I don't know.
Yeah, man. That guy Sal got it from that frat. And so we totally fictionalized a vendetta you'd have against him, which I bring up publicly because you didn't. We totally made it seem like there was lingering ill feelings, which there weren't. If anything, Jamin would be happy to buy him his first round on his date.
Yeah. He wanted it. I think that story had a happy ending. He definitely wanted it more than anyone else up there.
That's true. So, yes, indeed.
Glad to be a part of it, and glad to have played my role and squeak out second place.
You bet, man. That's great. You have a little story to tell. You gave us the memory we needed. To be honest, man, you're just a very good dude. Second story I want to bring up. We don't have to talk about it too much because I don't know how much you think about it with a smile, but I do have to at least bring it up. What about the Jamin coupons?
Yeah, that's a
Scott
classic.
Yeah, that was Scott being Scott. By all means, with a little help from Jake, as we discussed. Took it upon himself to create some very convincing looking coupons that entitled anyone who redeemed them to a free candy bar at the student union. And 50 of these were created. I remember the number very specifically for some reason. And I'm sure the majority of them were redeemed.
Yeah, that was a pretty good, that worked. Like, I'm surprised at how many people were able to successfully redeem those coupons at the bookstore.
And
It was,
I still have mine hanging up in my bedroom at my parents' house. I still have my Jamin coupon hanging up.
J-Money.
Yes, nothing like that J Money, man. Had this photo of this gentleman who looked a little like you, not a ton.
As his friend from like Malaysia.
Yeah, exactly that. And they said this coupon entitles you to one free candy bar at the student union. I'm paraphrasing that, but I'll never forget. I felt so bad, and to be clear, I had nothing to do with this for once. I think I like hung a couple up once I saw they were done. But I swear to you, I had nothing to do with it. They said courtesy of Penn Hall R.A. Javid. Like it literally like spelled out.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, that was. I got called to my boss's office that morning at like 9:30. 9:30, my dorm room rings. He's like, "Hey, Jamin, can you come to the office and talk to me a little bit?" I had not seen the coupons at this point. In fact, I don't think I saw. I think the way you ran into me, and you're like, "How about I see these coupons?" Because you knew what was going on.
Yeah.
And you didn't admit that you knew what was going on after our conversation. Because I'm like, "Yeah, I just, my boss just talked to me, and he thinks I had something to do with it, and they think that this is a terrorist face on the picture, Bill, and some kind of joke that I was playing." And so the whole thing went like completely. Here's all these great memories you have, and here's my memory. Like this is the good.
That's why I want to hear about it, because I know it kind of went awry. It didn't. I know it didn't sit for a while, man. I'm sorry about that, man.
Yeah. I almost lost my job, more or less, but he believed me because he's a real good guy, and he definitely took me for my word, and we had a good relationship. But he just like wanted to know. I'm like, I don't know. At that point, like I thought my residents were, playing a prank on me or picking. It was I knew it was either residents playing a negative prank on me or one of you guys trying to have just fun.
Yeah.
And I don't remember how I figured out it was Scott. I think maybe you told Scott that I was taking some heat for it, and he came over and talked to me about it.
I know I was quick to say, like, look, man, it's not going well.
Abort.
Yeah, no. But I also want to say, like, a hand to God, man, like, I looked at these and I said, oh, that is kind of funny. I'll hang this one here. Like, literally, I think I hung up two, and then I was just like, all right, see y'all later. You know what I'm saying? Like, this wasn't something that was overly planned out. It's certainly,
It definitely took off much better than I think anyone anticipated, because I think it was like $80 in redemption or something. So I don't know how many of those you printed or what the value of them was, but it ended up just I found out it was Scott. I told Scott, hey, you do me. I didn't rat him out or anything, but I told Kevin, hey, I know who it is. I'll talk to him. Hopefully he'll come to you. Yeah. And he did. And then they set up a meeting. And I guess like Scott originally tried sliding money under the door to make amends for it.
Yeah.
And then, which, good for him. And then he just said, hey, it was just a prank. It got out of hand. And my boss was like, okay, just don't do it again. And that was the end of it. So both of them were super respectful about the whole thing. And it was a really good prank. Like everything kind of lined it. I guess I had some clout, which made me feel good. The RA in Penn Hall. It definitely made the nickname stick for a while. But yeah, it was. I think it was, looking back on it. It's definitely something I enjoy. Overall.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was a good prank. I wish I had some involvement in it, other than it wasn't even my face. It was just,
I know. Oh Lord.
Like it was just like a bad enough prank that it worked, that it was, I don't know how it was redeemable. Um,
Yeah, it was one of a kind. I don't think anyone would anticipate it to work. I think that's part of the issue. I think, oh Lord. But yes, what a
yeah,
tremendous
and then they're
time.
all over the dorm for like, I get stuck around for a couple weeks yet too, because like when I was doing duty, I'd see these things on doors and stuff that were still being passed around. I'm like, ah, great, here we go. So I'm sure the book, I'm sure, like I know I work retail, so like I'm sure they had like these fake coupons like at the register, like do not accept. This. I'm like, ah, it's probably still there, just saved in a drawer somewhere.
Imagine that. Oh, that would make that is.
We
If
should
I
try
imagine
redeeming one next time we're on campus. Bring yours with you.
that would be great. That would be so cool.
We
That's a
went
good
for
idea.
graphic design or something, so they were pretty legit
They were.
looking.
Yeah, just a random face. Still, as much as they were legit looking, they weren't
And
legit.
like, and I think at that point, Scott and I hadn't spoken through like, because that was the second year. You guys were living West Campus, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So, like, I mean, it's nice of him to be thinking of me, but like, that was like the first time we had talked. That's Scott, though. You know,
Yeah. No, no, that's him.
I
Absolutely.
think we had a loving relationship, and he missed me. So,
That's just his way, baby. That's just his way. Um, you mentioned before, and I don't like this word choice, but it's the best segue we're going to get. Um, you mentioned saying, I guess I had some clout, certainly amongst your peers and your boss at the time. Um, one of the memories that I treasure a great deal is when I had the opportunity to kind of come home with you and your band, John Pinky, played kind of a brief show at your school. Um, and one of the things that immediately jumped out to me, and believe me, I already held you in the highest regard. There's a reason I was taking this trip with you. There's a reason we were buds. This, that, and the other thing. But I remember when you walked into that school and you got to see some of the kids that were still there. And again, we're only 1 year removed from high school, so it's not like we're adults by any stretch. We're not. But still, you were coming back from college and you were seeing kids that obviously you knew. And the way that room lit up when you walked in and, you heard the hi, Jamins, and just the general excitement of just seeing you in those halls and in that room again. That was very warming to see for me. And I expected nothing less, but it was still very, very cool and very humbling to kind of see that in action. Not in action, but to certainly witness that meant a lot to me. And certainly, I think it says the two things I believe in love, all right? Very seriously. I believe that the purpose of life are two things: to find the family that you choose, and to leave the world with more laughter than tears. And you're gonna have both, and you're gonna cause both, this, that, or the other thing. But my only goals for myself are to find the family that I choose, which is a lot of what the Corn Chronicles are about, and to create more laughter than to create tears. Another thing I believe, not in the highest, not as high as the other two, but a lot of people say like never burn your bridges and this, that, or the other thing, and I don't necessarily subscribe to that. But what I think is more important than not burning your bridges is how many people or the character of people that would kind of light that bridge for you. It takes a lot for a man to retrace his steps in any facet of his life and kind of walk into a place where he's just as welcome as he was and missed as when he left. To me, that means a lot. And I just wanted to let you know that it was really very, very warming for me to kind of see that. And I wanted to, just in case you needed to know, I don't know if you did, that says a lot about the character of a man. And I wanted to let you know that I appreciate that, and certainly that has kind of permeated, I'm sure, every aspect of who you are, and certainly it's a big part of the reason that we're friends. So I wanted to let you know that I appreciate that. Usually, when I
Thank you.
have people on this show, uh, there's a lot of people that I've played music with in the past. And so typically we veer to like remember when we played together and let's talk about playing music and coming up and learning and growing. What I think is cool about speaking with you is that you certainly were a musician in your own right, but we don't have experiences of growing up. We don't have experiences of growing up and playing music and kind of having that garage band and jamming out. And I guess in a nutshell, I wanted to kind of hear your perspectives about um, what was it like kind of coming together with John Pinky and what does that mean to you to this day? I mean, I know that's a really huge and nebulous question, and it's hard to explain that to somebody who wasn't really there. But at the same time, man, like, can you just kind of share some perspectives on what it meant to you as a kid to kind of have that musical outlet with your friends a little bit?
Yeah. Thank you for the heck of an intro there too into that segment. But I think it all kind of goes in line with that. You as a musician probably know, I think how you feel music and the relationships you have based around that music are lifelong, and they're so much more powerful than any other relationship, if that makes sense. Like,
Yeah.
I have a thing, like if someone tells me a song that means something to them or an album that means something to them, I'm going to get in a quiet room and listen to it in their entirety, because that's someone's telling me something about themselves that's intimate. And growing up, I think in 7th grade we formed the band. So John Pinky, me, Luke, and Jimmy. And I think our personalities, Jimmy and I were friends, and then Luke was the drummer. We live in a small community, so he was like the guy who knew how to play drums and had his own drum set and had the basement that would let us play really loud, bad music for a long time. And his mother and father were super supportive of all that, so couldn't thank them enough. But we've been together since 7th grade, like I said, and we did very little covers, and I think most of them were like System of a Down, believe it or not, which is definitely not the route we went with our music. But everything we did was original, and we jammed together and we ate wings, and and I don't know, it was a lot of time together. And once you get into that groove of playing music, you're feeding off each other. I didn't know guitar or drums or anything, but I wrote pretty much the songs. Like, I'd start playing a bass riff, and then we'd all feed off each other, and the structure of the song would kind of just be all of us all feeling the same thing at that moment. It's difficult for a song to come together as well as they did for our age. Now, granted, we're no prodigy, or I'm no prodigy, and held the music back compared to what my brother can do, writing music and all that stuff too, much more. But the feeling was there, and to your point, the relationship, people that came to see our shows after we graduated, and when we weren't, the cool kids in high school. We definitely weren't, and it was a small niche that enjoyed us, but they were that crowd came to everything. So I think that to the point, music, I think, is vital to my development. I think there's a soundtrack in the back of my head for every day, and it's somewhat bittersweet, melody going all the time. But I think those relationships around discovering new artists or discovering new music together is something I'll value forever with those people, and hope to do with more people going forward, and my children. Um, you know, so, and I was never forced into any instrument or anything. My parents did a great job of raising me. But and I'm I'll force them into playing music with their dad. But you will love me. You remember this. Nah, but I think you see that in musicals. You were heavily involved in theater as well, too, right?
Yeah, certainly in high school. Yeah.
Yeah. So and I always thought that those relationships, and even in college when we did like the one acts, I mean, John Kepler and I think he directed like one of my plays, and I think that we had one other swim class together, which
Okay.
which by the way, kind of side story, like it was lifeguarding, and he's an actor, so we had to like one of us had to pretend to be a drowning, distressed victim, and the other one was a lifeguard. And he was the distressed victim in this scenario, and he acted it out. He almost drowned me. Like he's flailing and punching, and he's like he drags me, and I'm like, all right, at some point you need to let me save you because
Yeah, man.
I'm very exhausted.
Yeah.
Like I'm not a lifeguard. I will not pass this class as a lifeguard. So he hit me in the nose, and that was like the one time I was angry at him for like until I got him to the side. But he's a great guy, and I think that anything where you're expressing yourself creatively, whether it be music or theater, it creates a bond because you have to be vulnerable to an extent and show, hey, this is the best I can do, and you're either going to accept it and we're going to be good off of it, or you're going to hate it and then I don't know.
Yeah. No, you need to open up, and I mean, it's a trope, but it's almost like the only way for you to grow is together, and that's music, and that's pretty much any performing art where you work with somebody else. I mean, it's cool, man, because you can't. Art has to be authentic. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
There's no, even like mediocre art. Like I'm not trying to say here, like I just play my ukulele and sing a little bit, and it's not special, but it's me.
Well, you're special, Paulie.
Very kind, my man. Takes one to know one. Also on that trip, you're
gonna be the pierogies, isn't it?
Yes. Oh yes, indeed. There's not much of a story to it, but I remember very distinctly walking up to Jamin's home, and I swear to you, I don't see a thing. I promise you, I don't see a thing. And I just hear Jamin go, well, like he literally goes like, oh well, and I'm just like, what, man? What's up? He's just like, well, my dad is not wearing a shirt, and I'm just like, oh, okay. And it's just like, it's almost like Jamin. You didn't, to be clear, but it's almost like Jamin was saying, do you still want to go in? And I'm just like, yeah, like we're good, man. Like we'll go in. And Jamin's father was hard at work preparing some pierogies.
Like he had just gone for like a run, so he was.
Yeah. It was between that and the boiling water. It was a sweaty room. I'm not gonna lie about that.
Like he's never done that before, so introducing him to a new friend, and I guess he had decided to start running again. He got hot, took his shirt off, like, oh, time to boil some pierogies. And he's a hairy man too, so there's just like his chest hair is just soaking wet. Like it was the most unappetizing.
It was a vision. It was a vision. I'll leave it at that. It was quite a sight. It was part of the reason it sticks with me is just that Jamin, in all honesty, was so uncomfortable about it. But I will confess that it was a vision to see the pasta prep shirtless. And every now and again, I would say about twice a year, I'll shoot Jamin a text when I'm preparing pasta, and I'll just leave it up to his imagination as to whether or not I'm wearing a shirt.
It's always off. It's always off.
Tell you what, man, you're right. No. Man. Super quick. There was also one story I wanted to cover real quick. Is one Halloween, I was Two-Face for Halloween, and we already had some red face paint, and I just needed some black face paint. and Jamin was kind enough to bring me to the Walmart, and I couldn't find the face paint, and I go to ask this gentleman, and he happens to be African American, and I go to ask this gentleman like where the face paint is, and I'm just like, yeah, can you tell me where the face paint is? And I'd say to him like, because I'm being two-faced, I'm Harvey Dent, you know what I'm saying? And I say to him like, I'm looking for black face paint. And Javen just on the side goes like, oh, like like that, and I just see Javen like react off to the side, and I swear to you, because I'm so like naive about it, I'm just like, what's the problem? And then like literally like 2 seconds later, it occurs to me like what that would imply, and I don't think the gentleman took it that way. But I remember going over to Javen like suddenly like in a cold sweat. I'm like, should I tell him that I'm being two-faced? Should I like cover that up? And it's just like Javen's just like, don't don't say anything, just don't mention it again. Just get what you need and let's get out of here. And it was very it's not very often, I'm not the brightest bulb in the box, but it's not very often that I'm not cognizant of what I say and how I say it. You know what I'm saying? And that was one of those times, and part of the reason it sticks out to me is because those moments are so rare. And it was something that David picked up on right away. And
which is odd for me because I have no social awareness.
The shoes were definitely on the other foot for a brief moment. So there's not much of a story to that. I was two-faced. There are great photos of that, treasured memories. I wound up, I think I had to buy somebody a pillow because when I went to sleep, all the black face paint and it came off on the pillow. I had to get like a pillowcase. But it kind of was what it was. It was a great time, great Halloween. And Jamin was kind enough to pick up the face paint. Jamin, I kind of wanted to close very quickly. I kind of addressed recently on Facebook, but I wanted to kind of share a Reader's Digest version on here, just because I had to hear. Your wedding took place in the immediate aftermath of Hurricane Sandy. And Steve and I decided to take the trip because we weren't going to miss your wedding. And we had just a whale of a time getting into the city because I had to pick up Steve in Brooklyn and getting out of the city without going through Manhattan before GPS was as advanced as it is now, where now it's all on your phone. Like, you know, you were being kind of rerouted into places that were closed and you weren't being notified they were closed. We're not that old. GPS was a real thing, but it wasn't like Waze where it told you like up to date information. Right. To be honest, man, like me talking your ear off about that trip would not be the point of this. The point is not for me to over talk about myself.
No, to your point though, like until you posted that, by the way, like I knew Hurricane Sandy was terrible and a lot of people were impacted by it, but I did not know how long it took people to get to our wedding. You know, like like until you, like, this is how many years later, and I feel like I was perhaps too ingracious to ungrateful. I mean to these people for making that trek from Jersey and from New York, a lot of her family. So that's all right. Go ahead. Thank you for making the trip.
Yeah, so we made this trip, and it was a surreal trip. And for a while, I had in my head, Dave Matthews had come out with an album, and there was this lovely ukulele song on the album, and it wasn't even necessarily a love song, a song called Sweet. And somehow, because I knew like 2 chords, I had it in my head that just like, I will learn this song and I will play it for them at their wedding. And it was so naive because I had no clue like the amount of planning that actually went into a wedding. It's not like you could just pause it and say like, I'm a guest that wants to play.
Excuse me.
Yeah, exactly. Pardon me. You have to let me play. No.
This is my gift. This is my gift. I didn't bring anything.
Yeah, man. I feel like I'm glossing over that a little too much to kind of truly drive home the significance. But at the same time, I wanted to at least mention that making that trip to your wedding in the aftermath of Hurricane Sandy remains one of the most harrowing and one of the trips I'm most proud of. It was really, it's one of those things. It's kind of like the Jamin coupon. Like when you're doing it, it's just like, wow, this might have been stupid. You know what I'm saying? Like this might not have been a good idea. But then certainly after the fact, it was kind of very almost poetic to kind of make your way through that and get to something on the other side in Pennsylvania that was so, beautiful, so right, And in fairness to everybody, the trip back was fine because by then, we made the trip back by day. It was a little cleaner than it was. We had spent like 2 days in Pennsylvania, but certainly the trip there was pretty wild. Jamin, I'm not necessarily going to push you for details on your wedding day, nothing like that. What I did want to hear your perspective on, I decided not to go with the gift of the ukulele song because I felt, one, I don't think it would have been any good at that time. Scary to believe, but there was a time in my life where I wasn't playing the ukulele and having it attached to my hip. But number two, I decided that it probably was pretty, selfish is a strong word, but I can't think of a better one. It was probably pretty selfish to want to pause a wedding ceremony just to play a song. So I got you something else instead. Can you tell me a little bit about the significance of my wedding gift to you, and maybe if it's had any lasting effects on you?
Yeah. Is the most memorable wedding gift, I'll tell you that, just because it keeps coming back. Yeah, what was it's gonna get us again somewhere down the road, but I'm like, we're unwrapping it, and it's a new, not an iPhone, is it an iPod case or something? Like, oh, cool, someone got us an iPod. That's a really neat gift. And like we go to open it, and I guess upside down, and just sand comes pouring out of it. Just because in college I guess it was the Prince of Persia, and I'd always say I don't have enough sand. So it was a very sweet sentiment to go back and remember the good times, because in the game, if you use sand, you can reverse time and fix any mistakes. And the letter that you put with it, that, I'm a selfish person, I open the gift first and read the letters second, which could have prevented a lot of headache. The note said, may there always be enough sand so you can go back and remember the good times or something. It was a very, very sweet sentiment. But at the time, I'm like, who pranks up someone on their wedding gift? And it's all, there was, I think, money buried inside of it. But at the time, it just seemed like someone pranked me on my wedding day with just sand all over the place. And then put it away, because I read the note, like, this is nice. This is a nice keepsake. We'll keep this with the wedding gifts in the memory box.
Right.
And 2 or 4 years later, we've been married for a long time, the same damn thing happens again. I open it, I'm like, oh, right, what is in this box? And it was sand. And again, there's a lot of sand in that box. I don't know, would you put the whole 5-pound bag in that little 2x2?
I went to the beach. I promise you, man. I'm on Long Island. I went to the beach. I filled it up myself. That's some real sand. No, nothing store bought. Only the authentic stuff for you.
Yeah. And then actually, was it 2 weeks ago? Brittany was like, "What's this?" I said, "No." Don't open it. It's sand. It's poly. It's very sweet. I don't need to see it again. I don't know which way's up.
I'm surprised you never put like a warning label on it.
It's. I don't want to ruin it.
No doubt.
I'll need it someday. 10 years down the road, we'll be having hard times in our wedding or in our marriage, and we'll open it. And we'll have enough sand to go back or something like that. I don't know. Or we'll get divorced because we'll have sand everywhere and fight over it. But
I don't do that.
Sorry. Yeah, sorry. No. No,
Here's
no.
what I do
It's
see
just,
though. I see one of your sons stumbling across it and saying, "What is this?" That I think will happen.
yeah, without a doubt. I'm throwing it away next time.
Yeah.
It's the 3 and done.
You know what you ought to do? You ought to mail it back in another box.
It's, something. I
No,
have enough sand. Stop it.
you catch me opening it up, just like, oh, Sesame Street, and then just, oh no. Oh, that would be how it would go. But
I think it is so great because it wasn't intended to be a prank, and it was very sweet, but it hits every time. Let's say.
yeah, which in a sense makes it a perfect gift for me, man.
Yeah, so I was about to say that. Like, it's everything you talked about. It's making someone laugh, and it's forming bonds and family. So
Well, now I'll know to be on the lookout for anything coming from you. Unless you make the return address the Von Tassel. He sent me a birthday card once with the return address all Von Tassel themed, and it was hilarious. I don't have a better story for that. That's hanging up in my room in my parents' house as well. But
I
man,
did that.
what's that?
I did that.
Yeah, you found a card that said beep beep.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I was because we were changing over from American Greetings to Hallmark, and I had to count every single card, and that one was like halfway through this $10,000 inventory that we had to do, and I'm like, that was a smile in my day. I thought of Paulie. I don't know if it was the insanity or not, but yeah, I do remember that. I'm glad you kept that.
Oh, dude, you bet. It's hanging up. Next time I'm at my parents' house, who knows when that'll be, though, with all this stuff going on. But next time I'm there, I'll certainly take a photo. Boy, oh boy. Jamin, man, thank you so much for joining me. Is there anything else you wanted to cover before we say goodnight?
Nah, I'm good. Thank you.
Tremendous, man. Jamin, I mean, I covered it talking about kind of when we had the opportunity to go to your hometown. But I want to thank you so much for the positive impact you've had on me throughout my whole life. I'm so glad that, back in those college days to now, I'm happy to call you my brother, man. I'm happy we've been able to stay together, and Lord knows I'm always learning from you. I appreciate it.
Yeah, and on that note, I like talking about special bonds people have. I feel like you're one of those people in my life, and I think that's a trait that you have with just who you are, but certainly with me, you connect with certain people, and when you meet them, you're like, I want to know this person forever. I want to know this person more, and I want them to be a part of my life. And that is Paulie. If I'm ever introducing somebody, that would be how I would introduce you. Is this guy? If he's in your life, it's a better life, So thank you, and thanks for having me on the show.
That's so kind, man. Thank you so much. Shoot, now we're just gonna go cry a little bit. Nah, man, tremendous. Thank you so much for joining me. My best to Brittany and your lovely sons. Oh man, I can't wait to send you more Sesame Street stuff. Be on the lookout for that. No sand, I promise.
They'll be stuffed with sand and bust open.
And ladies and gentlemen of the viewing audience, if any of you are still left, thank you so much for tuning in to the Corn Chronicles. The search continues. I have been Tom. This has been Jamin. We're here to wish you a good night. Thank you so much, Jamin. Have a good one, my friend.
Me too.